All right, guys, we're back on the Kevin and Fred show, and today joined by our friend and founder of Trainual, Mr. Chris Ronzio. Chris, how's it going, man?
Awesome. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm doing good. So I'm excited to have this conversation recorded finally, because number one, most of the times when you and I have actually spoke, it's been a little more social. Been in business context as well a few times, but never where I could just pepper you and put you on the hot seat and ask you questions about your business. So I'm pretty excited to do that today.
Let's do it.
Yeah, man. So Chris, let's do this for the four people maybe that don't know you. But I know a lot of our audience does know you and is probably even a customer. Tell us what Trainual is, and we'll bounce around from there.
Yeah, so Trainual is short for training manual, but it's really a employee business playbook software. It's how you teach your team who you are, what your company's all about, the policies and processes they need to know, and then just keep them up to speed on your best practices.
That's awesome. So, and it's automated. So, I mean, it's for I've been a customer for I don't know how many years now since you guys did the last relaunch, and we love it. Like very happy customer as well. But I remember being a customer of yours years ago too, as well, from a consulting firm from a consulting perspective, and talking about training and talking about onboarding. And for us, it was like the first time we really realized we had that problem.
Yeah.
And I remember spending that time with you and kind of learning, it was mostly you asking us questions, but we learned so much kind of going through that process. So I could only imagine what you've got into this company. So let's I would love to ask, let's start here. How did you, like, what brought you to Trainual? Like, how did you even come up with this idea to start developing a company like this?
All right, so we got to go way back. My first business that I started when I was 14 was a video production company. And so what we did was live sporting event videos. It started at my high school. I grew it through college. Then I set up a few offices. And so we had camera operators going out to events all around the United States. And when I couldn't be at all the events, I had to figure out how to train people online before they got there so that when they showed up, they would look and feel like they were part of my company, and then they just wouldn't mess things up because, we would get these big contracts. We'd send out crews to all these cities and we'd have a dozen events going on the same day. And if it just didn't go off perfect, then the event, the coordinators would cancel our deal. And so online training, systems, processes, SOPs, it was all super important for me. So as I grew that business, that was what I became passionate about was, what does a camera operator do? What does a production manager do? What does a sales rep do? And really defining those roles and the training to get those people up and running. And so then as I started making other friends in business, I saw that's kind of like unique. A lot of small businesses don't invest that much time and energy into doing those things. And so by contrast, other people's businesses seem so messy. And so I had friends that were like, hey, can you help come organize my company? And I started getting so excited about that. So 2013, I sold my video company and I started consulting. It was just me at first. And I was going business to business, interviewing their people. And that's when we got introduced, was somewhere in that, that time that I was just doing consulting.
Yeah, and I don't know if Nico made the connection or if it was somebody else, one of Ross's friends. With the cool thing that we discovered and kind of getting to know each other was we had a lot of mutual friends, people you probably knew from networking, business networking groups as we did, or just some kind of, some people. I know you're friends with, or you knew Matt Blanton as well, someone I grew up with.
Yeah.
And so it's such a small world. But to this day, we still talk to other real estate agents about, as you're going to grow your business and scale your business, this is something you got to have. Like, it can't be on an Excel spreadsheet. It
Yeah.
can't be on a piece of paper. You've got to actually have this systematized. So I love that you took this on. It's something I want to go back to though, dude. Did you say you started that video business at the age of 14?
Yeah. Yeah. I was a freshman in high school.
What prompted that? Like, are your parents entrepreneurs?
No, my dad was like in the corporate world. And so I knew I wanted to be in business, but then he was traveling like 5 days out of the week and was trying to climb the corporate ladder. And I did not want that. And so to me, entrepreneurship, it was like the only way I could be in business as a kid because I couldn't legally work anywhere. And so I was just always, hustling around the neighborhood, car washes. I had like 15 business cards. I would like clean people's houses. I would power wash their decks, like anything I could do for money. And so when I joined my high school, there was this career day, and I remember there was a booth with like a bunch of camera equipment. And at the time, I thought I would be so cool to do like sports video. I want to be like Ahmad Rashad, like an NBA
Yeah,
broadcaster kind of guy. And so I signed up for the school video thing. And what I got was trained in the cameras. I got to take the camera home, and then all of a sudden the school started asking me to film stuff around the campus or whatever. And they said that they would pay me to do it. And so I made the connection that, okay, I can make money with video, and like that's how the business started.
that's awesome. So so let's fast forward back now to Trainual. So you launched Trainual starting off as a consulting. What point do you turn this into a software? And
Yeah.
what's kind of give us the kind of thought process behind the business model, if you will, or the product that you guys are now?
Yeah, sure. So 2013 is when I started consulting. I did it for a couple years, and I had sort of productized this package where I'd come into a business and I would organize chaos. That's what the name of the consulting company was. So I would come in, I would do all these interviews, I'd map out people's roles and responsibilities and their workflows, and then I would recommend tools that would help speed up their workflow. And a lot of times the byproduct of the project was me handing over standard operating procedures, or me handing over some kind of training on like, here's how you do what you do, here's who does what. So as I was doing that over and over, I thought, I wish there was a simple tool that just did this. For my business, when we were doing training, it was like YouTube videos stuck into Google Sites with, like email-based quizzes that we would send out. And I just wished it was like all in one. So the original version of Trainual came in very early 2015. I had met these students at ASU, Arizona State University, and they were doing this student project as like an onboarding tool for big HR, like mid-market kind of companies, enterprise companies. That was something I'd never used as a small business owner, but I could see the connection of like, okay, there's a process to bringing new people into your business. You want to train them some stuff. And so I ended up buying the code to this student project, hiring some contract developers, and patching together the first version of Trainual. And so launched that in 2015, and it was just for my consulting clients. So never intended to be a software business. It was just like, I'm doing this consulting service. If I have a software that's my own, it's going to add some IP to my business. It's going to differentiate me. And then beyond just a one-off project with somebody, I could potentially have some recurring revenue where, I deliver everything through my platform, and then they pay $99 a month or something. And so that was the game plan with Trainual. It was not to be a software business. It was to, have some IP for my consulting.
Where was the turning point for becoming go and say, you know what, there's something here with the software?
So what's hilarious is like when we worked together and I came into your business, I recommended not using Trainual. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, dude, I remember it distinctly. I remember,
yeah.
but I also remember, and this is the thing I respect about you, and will tell people about you when I'm recommending Trainual, because I can do so as a user, as somebody who knows you personally, and as someone who thinks highly of you, because you said, I want to recommend Trainual and I can't right now. It's not, you said something effective. It's just not what you guys need. Yeah. But it's going to be, and I'll call you back when it is. I remember that. And we went off and we ended up becoming a customer of one of the top two that you had recommended. And by the way, they were great. And you were right though. I mean, Trainual came back even better and a significantly better price. But dude, I specifically remember that. But I figured what was it though that when you went, because we weren't that big of a client. So, I mean, and you don't charge a lot of money for the value that you guys give. What was the thing where you're like, man, this is really, there's more to the software thing?
Yeah. So what started happening was, first, over a couple years, I had put in a few dozen customers into Trainual that were a good fit, simple businesses, just basic onboarding and training. And so it had built up like a few thousand a month of recurring revenue. And so that was something. First, my wife was like, hey, you should really pay attention to this thing. It was covering our rent and car payments. And she's like, well, why not get more of that? You should do more of that. The other piece was, as my consulting business was growing, I was finding consultants in other cities that I wanted to teach my model, my consulting model. And so I brought on a consultant in Austin, Texas. I brought on a consultant in like the Lake Tahoe, Reno, Nevada area. And to train them on how I did consulting, I used Trainual. And so I'm like running people through this tool, and people are starting to use it. People are starting to refer it. And then it just kind of clicked to me. And it was like, I'm working with maybe 10 businesses a month, let's say, on the consulting side. And I'm bound by my time. I can only do so much, and I can only impact those businesses. But what if I could give away all my consulting? And that was what my marketing was teaching people how to scale their business and how to organize their systems. And then we would monetize it through this software product that could have an infinite number of customers. So that was like the switch. And I thought, let's just try this. And so it was January of 2018 that we took 3 years of feedback with the product from my customers and spent a couple months just rebuilding the tool 100% from scratch, launched in January of 2018 as a software business, new entity. And I had a small team of 5 at that time. And we thought, let's just give this a go. We can always go back to consulting if it doesn't work. But fortunately, over the next few months, it started working.
Yeah, it turned out to be a pretty good move.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly because we're like, the system that you recommended for us was good. It was expensive, but it felt worth it at the time. And I remember when you said, like, hey, I think we're ready to go. This is, we've redone it. And so we all looked at it. We all, meaning myself, my business partner, Fred, and Ross, who's worked very closely with us on our operations since, 2015. And we all looked at it. We're like, dude, yeah, like first of all, the price is significantly better, but I think the function of this is even better too than what we were using.
Yeah.
And that was one thing I love is like you delivered a super quality product, and it's been fun. I didn't know all of that background story there. So it's kind of cool to see. Give me an idea now, since from 2018 to you and I recording this the first week in October of 2021, like how many, what's your customer base like now from like number standpoint, user standpoint, whatever the metric is that you look at? I'm curious where that's grown to today.
Yeah, so we're coming up on 10,000 companies in the platform in 183 countries. So I mean, it's become a worldwide thing in the last 3.5 years, which is pretty crazy.
Wow. Did you ever anticipate that from the beginning?
Not at the beginning. No, at the beginning, success for us, like I said, was, I had this team of 5 and we thought, oh, how cool would it be if we had enough customers that just covered all of our salaries, and then we could go back to consulting and it would just be fun. Like that was
Go
the
back
plan.
to trading our time. Yeah.
Yeah, like let's just make enough money with the software business to pay rent, to cover our overhead. Because the other thing we had started doing was, Russ Perry with Design Pickle, right?
Yeah.
So that was one of those examples where instead of charging for consulting, I traded time for like equity in an early stage business and said, let me set up the operations or the system of your business. Design Pickle had really started to grow and that was paying off. And I thought, oh, this is amazing. Let's do that over and over and over again. And so my thought process was, if Trainual could cover our overhead, then I can just cherry pick opportunities with my like ninja squad of executors, and build a bunch of businesses. But then when we turned the team inside to just building Trainual, we were getting such bigger growth and ROI that, it was like, why would we look anywhere else?
Was there a turning point? I mean, dude, that's a lot of like, that's mind blowing to me. I know, like, again, I follow along on social media and we'll run into you at a basketball game from time to time. Like, I know I'm aware of, like, you guys have raised quite a bit of money recently. Again, like, I'm aware that you're having success, but those numbers are astonishing to me as somebody who actually pays attention to what you're doing. Um, was there some sort of jumping off point? Was there a conversation, a referral, a particular moment in time that seemed to like really, really kind of catapult you in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, so it it was about 6 months into the business, and my marketing and whole sales strategy with my consulting business and even my video company was very referral based. It was very like small network, one by one, growing this thing organically. And what I realized with SaaS was, when you go from charging $10,000 or $20,000 for a service package to charging $49 a month or $99 a month, like you need to get a lot of customers to just kind of make up that bucket that's empty. And it was a lot harder to sell software. And so, I was the first few months, I was doing these demos where I would get people on the phone and I would do a half-hour presentation. And it's like a $49 commitment, on your credit card that you can cancel anytime. And I was getting people saying like, oh, let me go back and talk to my executive team and like, let's meet again next week. And I was thinking, this is crazy. Like how hard is it to sell this kind of product? So I realized we had to build this inbound funnel where we were telling a story in the market on Facebook, on Instagram and LinkedIn, on YouTube, and getting people that were ready to buy to just come to our site and sign up with a credit card. And so the big change was when we figured out how to message it correctly. And we started putting out these video ads that would get people to the website and get them to buy into the trial for, like what would pay back their acquisition costs in just a couple months. And that was the lever that we were like, okay, once we figure that out, we can go from spending a couple $1,000s a month to 10,000 to 50,000 to 100,000 on Facebook ads. And it's just a volume game at that point. So that was the huge thing.
Wow, that's huge. I got to imagine, I know you're very active in the entrepreneurial world or culture, if you will. Are there any particular, it could be a group or specific people that you would say from like a mentorship standpoint or support standpoint that just really stick out to you as like ways of, people, maybe relationships that you just got a lot of value from?
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, it like they all compounded on top of each other. I was part of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, for a long time. And before I qualified for EO, they had this accelerator program that I was in. I was part of this group, SaaS Academy, for any software businesses, run by this guy, Dan Martell, who's built a bunch of companies, and he's an angel investor. I did this warrior program out in California that, in a big way taught about marketing and how to build a funnel. A lot of Russell Brunson stuff was all about this. Gary V with like his brand and content that stuff that he puts out. But for me, it was being in a lot of these groups and listening to podcasts every single day. Like SaaStr is a huge software podcast I listen to. I Love Marketing is like a local podcast. Joe Polish. I love that one.
Joe's office is like right past my shoulder. So
Yeah.
I was using his office last week for something. I always love the marketing in there. Him and Dean
Totally.
are geniuses.
Yeah, Dean Jackson. And the like podcasts on even like selling businesses. John Warlow wrote a book, Built to Sell, and he has this Built to Sell podcast. And so I was trying to like full cycle listen to startup stories, business raising money stories, selling company stories, and just understand like that whole entrepreneurial journey. And then you combine that with like my being inside so many businesses as a consultant, 150 clients that I had as a consultant, where I was in their operations, in the weeds. And then my own story, I felt like I just had so many stories to tell. And so when I was able to go out to Instagram and Facebook and put out these ads, it was just telling authentic stories. It's not trying to sell people. It's like, hey, if you're going through this, I get it. That's what I went through. Here's the thing that thousands of businesses are using. Like, you should try it out. It's free to try it. Like that. It became like a really light touch sales pitch, because it's like, here's a ton of value, put out value. And then if you're interested, if you're like at that point in your business, try the product. It's free to start.
I love that. So if, correct me if I'm wrong, if I say anything incorrect. So one thing I remember though, when we first met, you had this little book. It was like this big. It was like of hacks. Remind me of the title of this book. 100 Hacks. Okay. Yes. So
100 hacks to improve your business. Yeah.
And I remember reading through that, like, this is like the coolest little giveaway. Like, I didn't say the word lead magnet or tripwire or whatever, but in my mind, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, this is the coolest thing to do that ever. I love that, because so many people want it's something it's easy and tangible and I can take it away.
Yes.
So was that your first book you've ever written?
Yeah. So, and my own hack in writing that book was I used to send out these weekly newsletters that, at first it was just to like my friends, and then it built to a list of a few thousand people. But every week it was like 2 to 3 sentences. That was the whole newsletter, super light touch. And it was like one sentence, like, hey, have you had this problem pop up? Sentence number 2, I just found this tool that solves that problem. Sentence number 3, check it out. Here's the link. Like, that was the whole email. And so because it was so light and you didn't have to read much, every week I was just getting people clicking these things and sharing. And so after 2 years of sending this newsletter, I had now 100+ weeks of content. I was like, hey, I should put this in a book. Like it's now it could be something tangible. And so actually, you mentioned Matt Blanton earlier. He just printed the book, like we self-published it, like put it together, made this book, and it was just a lead magnet. It was something that people could download online, but it was also something I started scouring LinkedIn and finding people with businesses that were like the size of company I worked with. And I would Google their address, and then I would have my assistant put a book and with a little letter and send it out to them. And that became my funnel for consulting. Was I send out 10 books, I get 4 coffee meetings, I book 2 consulting gigs, and what cost me, $200 in printing leads to $20,000 in sales, and just rinse and repeat.
That's brilliant. And now, you're right. You've written a little bit longer of a book though, right?
Yes. So now I have a real book
That's just
called The
a
Business
tiny bit
Playbook.
bigger.
Yeah, an actual book. So this one's on Amazon and everything. It's called The Business Playbook. This is one that I wanted to write since the beginning of Trainual, but I didn't feel like it was appropriate to write it then. These
How come?
philosophies and everything that went into building the product is what we've kind of field tested through thousands and thousands of companies over the last few years. And so now that Trainual has grown to where it is, it just was time to formalize this and say, okay, you want one of these for your company. Here's how to do it. Here's the DIY guide to building out your playbook. And so it goes through like what you should put in the playbook, how to build it out, how to roll it out to your team, who's going to help you create it, how to keep it relevant. And it's just start to finish everything you need to know about a business playbook.
So I'm probably totally oversimplifying it or reducing it because that's kind of how my mind works. But would it be safe to say this would be kind of an updated, modernized version of something like the E-Myth? And I don't mean that disparaging because I know Michael has been important to you. But I mean that actually, like to me, that's more of a compliment than anything else. Would that be somewhat in the right direction of what this book's going to be like?
It's kind of a derivative from that. So Michael
Oh,
E. Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, actually wrote the foreword to my book. And we, like you mentioned, we've had a relationship over the last few years. And so if anyone listening has read his book, the E-Myth, or the entrepreneurial myth, is about the idea that because you're good at something, you can build a business doing that thing. That's the myth. And what he kind of tears apart is that, no, that's why you get stuck in your business, because you're the technician that just does the thing. And if you ever want to scale, you got to pull yourself out of that. So a couple times in the book, he mentions how you should think of your company as a franchise and build like the franchise prototype. And how to do that, you need an operations manual, which is a way to describe who does what in the business. But he touches on it for like a couple paragraphs in a huge book. And so my idea was I want to make a full book out of those couple paragraphs, because everybody that reads that book says, yeah, I want to do that, but how? How do I actually make it happen? That's what the business playbook is.
that's awesome, man. I love what a great idea. So where do people get that? I think you mentioned Amazon. Where else is there another place people can find the book?
Yeah, I mean, anywhere books are sold, all the major retailers. So just check it out. Search Business Playbook, Chris Ronzio. But yeah, Amazon and Target and yeah, wherever, Kindle, hardcover, softcover, it's all there.
Cool. We'll link to that here in the show notes as well too, and make sure everyone is able to access that easily. What was that experience like writing that book, man?
Oh, it's, one of our taglines at Trainual is get your business out of your brain. It was something I said a ton at the beginning, and we trademarked it. And as I was writing this book, that's what I kept thinking about. It was like, this thing is stuck in my brain, and it's so hard to extract everything. So it was like almost like a painful process to pull it all out. But that makes me so proud of, like, now it exists. It's this thing that's out in the world that hopefully is going to help a ton of companies, but I'm glad I did it.
Probably a little cathartic, and definitely a lot painful. I asked that question because I've got a lot of friends who've written books recently in the last couple of years, and nobody's like, oh, it was a breeze. Like very few people I know, and they wouldn't be close friends, or some people I know that are just like naturally gifted writers. Benjamin Hardy, who I've met quite a number of times through Joe, actually. And it seems like that guy's pushing out a new book every other month. But
Yeah.
for most of us where writing isn't the profession, it just seems so tedious. I got to imagine you learned a lot about yourself in that process.
Yeah, what's crazy is like I always loved writing. I had my newsletter. I had a column with ink. I've written for other publications, but every time I'm writing for one of those websites or news sites or whatever, they have very confined, like character limits. They say write 600 characters or 800 characters, and
Yeah.
everything in the book is about condensing the idea down to the smallest amount of text, that you can write. And even my newsletter, 3 sentences. And so writing a book, it was like flipping that upside down and saying, that like bullet point, stretch that out to be a chapter. And so it required a lot of digging to go back and find stories and examples and really explain it, because I tend to just want to communicate quickly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as evidenced by the first book, right? So
Yeah.
so short and one line, which I totally love. So let me ask you this: so book launch is going on now. I mean, you guys just had a really big event last week. I guess 2 weeks ago, by the time this is probably airing, where I mean, Gary Vee was a speaker, Shaq was a speaker, you had a bunch of other founders and people that own and run high level businesses like yourself. What are you like? What's going on at Trainual now? Like, what are you excited about for as we approach the end of 2021 and rolling into 2022?
What was so cool is that, a year ago when I started writing this book, I kind of started with a blank slate, and I said, how would I tell someone to outline their company if they were starting from scratch? And so when I was organizing the book, I was kind of criticizing our product at the same time. And so over the last year behind the scenes, I was like, we should do it this way in the product. We should change the navigation menu. We should rename this. We should cut this because it doesn't make sense. And so the product evolved a lot behind the scenes over the last year. And so this week in launching the book, last week was the event, and we unveiled a ton of new functionality in the product. And so now they match 100%. Now it's like everything I said in the book is reflected in the product. And so what I'm so excited about with Trainual is that people can read the book, understand it, and then if they want to just use Word docs and whatever to do it, they can make it happen. But if they go to our website, they'll say, oh, wow, that makes total sense. Let me just plug this in and start here. So we think it's going to be a real differentiator, because our product is not like a learning management training, red tape, bureaucracy kind of product. It's like, here's how you organize your business and show other people how it works. It's built for real businesses. And that's what I'm so excited about.
So I'm going to ask this question as we start to wind down, because I think it's natural that first of all, in real estate, almost every agent thinks they're different or their market is different, their business is different, yada yada yada. But I know that's coming up on some level for a lot of our listeners right now
Yeah.
around. Yeah, but my business is so much different. Can you just speak to like the real estate agent, if you will? Because I know you've actually got quite a bit of experience hands-on with real estate businesses that are maybe having that kind of similar thought right now, whether it's about the book or the product itself and why it maybe is for them.
Like why their business is different and how they can
No,
explain it.
I would say why it's not that different, because we all like in real estate, we all have this thing where we like to think our market is different, our business
Oh,
is
yeah, yeah.
different, when in reality it can all get out of our head, right? We can put it into a system, at least, a very good portion of it. Is there, I gotta imagine you run across that kind of roadblock or objection from other business industries, but I just speaking directly specifically to the real estate agent, what comes to mind for you?
Yeah, so let me explain. The way that I define a business playbook is it's the profile of your company, like who you are. It's your people and who does what and who's who in the company. It's your policies, which is like your handbook, and it's your processes. And so if we flip that upside down, every real estate agent has almost the same processes. Like maybe you use different tools, or maybe you're like more sophisticated than someone else, but basically like here's how you fill out a purchase and sale, and here's how you do these types of things. And so in a large way, everyone's the same. Everyone's doing the same kind of stuff. And that's why you have portability between brokerages and whatever. But then as you start to move up the pyramid, your policies or your like rules of the workplace, your cultural norms. Like not every brokerage is like, hey, wear flip-flops, that's
Right.
different. And then as you go another ladder up, it's like our people make us different because we've got unique stories and backgrounds, and not every set of coworkers is the same in a company. And then you go up to the top and it's like the profile of the business, not every company has the same core values. Not every company has the same story of why it got started. Not everyone has the same filters of how they make decisions or guiding principles. And so the majority of what businesses do might be the same. But what makes you different is your people, is your rules, is your stories, is your values, and all that is within your playbook. And so, a big part of getting this written down and communicated to your people, it's not to just teach you the same stuff that everyone does everywhere. It's to teach you like how to be a part of this team and what this business is all about.
That's awesome, man. I love that. And so, guys, I cannot recommend it enough. Again, as a super happy customer of Trainual and somebody who knows Chris and has read other works, I'm personally excited to get my hands on the book and read a copy very soon. And I would just implore everyone else listening to do the same, even if you're a one person show right now. Like that's where it starts. Chris started as one person, and it can go so much further beyond that.
Well, thank you. Everybody go get a copy. It's like you said, if you want to learn to delegate, learn to pass off responsibilities so you can take on the next big thing, this is the recipe for how you do it.
Absolutely. And guys, we'll link to his Instagram and whatnot in the show notes because there actually is a ton of good information there. He's little personal stuff, but a whole lot of business, I think, value and content that I'd recommend. And so, Chris, first of all, congrats on the launch. Congrats on all the success. I mean, mind blowing numbers, really. And thanks for taking the time out to be with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, bud. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.